everybody, it's Friday again. Have to do the video from home because my phone died while I was working. Uh, and don't worry, the ever handsome Luke Mitchner will be back with us next week to continue talking about our primer for anti-racist white educators. But today I want to take a moment and talk about something that's shown up a lot recently, and most disturbingly just today in the first issue of our school's newspaper, where there was a student advice column by young men called the Bromancers that sought to answer questions that people wrote in to the paper about. And the letter to the Bromancers was troubling enough, talking about trying to balance being respectful for women while also trying to get that nut. And one, I mean, the language obviously is problematic to be talking about it in that way, but it also very subtly and not so subtly in both ways kind of presents this idea that you can't be respectful and also engage in sexual activity, and that it's either you respect women or you use them as a piece of meat. And so that piece was troubling enough, but the response also continued to objectify women and kind of present them as either being shallow and only after people with good looks, or being kind of frigid and unresponsive to all these great efforts that these young men are going through to try to shower love on them and not get it reciprocated back, as if you giving a compliment to a girl means that she immediately must please you in any way you see fit. It's deeply disturbing that it made it to print through all of the safety mechanisms of editing process and approval processes. And it's even more disturbingly so because our school is supposed to be planning and tackling sexual assault and rape culture coming up in a school-wide workshop in October. So I'm upset. I'm angry. I feel for my female students that have to read that and get upset that made it through that process. I feel for my male students that are continuously inundated with this message that it's okay to display toxic masculinity and that to be a man you have to degrade women. And I'm just not having it. I'm not about it. And I fully recognize that when I was in high school, I may have been right there along with them, chuckling it up and laughing and thinking that this was all one big joke. And there's a long way to come, but that's why we need men and women to step up and talk about these issues and present an alternative outlook on human sexuality and toxic masculinity. And this also connects to a bigger, broader issue that I've been thinking about for a few days. And I'm going to do my best to take some time this weekend and try to put my thoughts down into words. But more and more I'm seeing that there is, kind of what I'm calling toxicity of fraternity. That's not just fraternities on college campuses, although they are a very good example of what I'm talking about. But it's this idea that anytime men come together in organizations that promote manhood and manliness and predominantly are occupied by men. We can look at the military, we can look at the police officers, prison guards, gangs, the college fraternities, the NFL players, right? Like right now, Colin Kaepernick set out with a very clear message about what his protest was about, and he was joined by maybe a dozen or so players over the course of last year, and then it started again this year, and you had some more players that kind of stepped up to it. But it wasn't until Trump challenged their brotherhood of the NFL, of saying that a player should be fired and the coaches were weak and that type of thing, that really brought about a response at the level that we saw over the last couple of weeks. And a lot of other people have written about that, that concern about Kaepernick's protest being hijacked. And I think that's valid and that's relevant about this idea that, are they protesting racial injustice, or are they protesting Trump getting involved in the conversation and coming after their own? And it's that covering their own that is one of the most dangerous things. We see it in the NFL when they overlook the physical abuse and violence that has taken place against women by players across the league and accept them into their brotherhood and defend them as making mistakes and things like that. We see it in fraternities that consistently are accused of facilitating rape and sexual assault and covering it up and not talking about it. We see it in police where, you know, the thin blue line, and everybody is covering for one another, and, you know, making sure that no cop is going to go down as they're doing their job. And, you know, you can you cannot expect these investigations of police shootings that are done by police to ever yield any different results than we're currently getting. So I want to explore that more. I want to think about it some more, and really try to get some thoughts down. But yeah, toxicity of fraternity. I think it's a real thing. I think that if we're going to continue having these organizations that bring men together, we need to have an honest appraisal of what actually we're about. So, men, you need to step up. You need to evaluate yourselves. We cannot continue to teach our young boys and young men that this type of behavior is okay. So, head into the weekend, get some rest, and we'll see you later.